www.offthecorner.net. I'm Rallo, and you are watching the Fact Project. And FACT, of course, is an acronym that stands for Fundamental African-Centered Thought. The goal here on the Fact Project is to convey some facts and some information to members of our community. And today, of course, is the first Monday of the month. So it is the Agyei Tyehimba edition of the Fact Project. We want to welcome Brother Agyei. Peace and Black Power, Brother Agyei. Thank you for being here today, brother.
Peace and Black Power, fam. How you be?
I'm doing well, man. First Monday of the month is becoming very popular here on the Fact Project. So I want to publicly thank you for consistency and being so generous with your time, brother.
Hey, brother, man. I actually wanted to say something regarding that. The honor is mine. Give me 1 second. I'm kind of sharing this with my platform real quick.
That's fine.
The honor is mine, and I know all types of Black people watch the show, particularly your segment of the show, and I want to say this directly to them because I think a lot of people in the movement think this and don't say it. I just want to say, a lot of people go their whole lives and don't know what they're here to do, don't know why they're here, who they are. They're trying to figure it out, and that causes a lot of problems when you don't have a sense of who you are, whose you are, what you're here to do. You wind up doing all types of craziness and wasting years. And I'm really, really grateful, man, and I'm blessed to say that I never had that particular problem. Now, I've had some problems. I've sometimes deviated when I was younger off the path, but I feel blessed, family, to be able to use my gifts and my preferences to do what I feel I am here to do. That's a blessing. And I don't take that for granted. You know, to be able to teach and organize, that's what I put here to do, and communicate with the people. So I'm when I'm on here, it kind of adds on to that. You know, so if I can contribute what I got to the pot, then we got a righteous revolutionary gumbo going on right there.
Nice. Now you seem to have a gift. You know, years ago when you could speak and speak well, they would say you can rap. You know, not rap music, but they say you can rap. And so, you know, in that context, I would say you can rap. That's why we reach out to you and bring you on as often as we can. I want to, give a big shout out to DJ Tiger too, man. That's my brother right there. He's behind the scene making everything possible. So salute to DJ Tiger. But brother Agyei, today, go ahead.
I was just saying salute.
Okay, yeah, salute to him. So today's topic is the importance of Black History Month. So the first obvious question is, what is the importance of Black History Month?
Okay, so I'm gonna spare people all the specific who created it, when he created it, and all that. If you don't know that, family watching, you should go research it. But we know it's Carter G. Woodson started as Negro History Week. But as I see it, the importance of Black History Month is it helps us to identify ourselves in a way that's empowering. But it also helps us to see things about ourselves that maybe we need to correct and we need to adjust. It helps us to acknowledge important people, events, and movements. It helps us to tell our story in a world that's constantly trying to tell our story for us. And it helps us to correct and to challenge revisionist history or stories that mischaracterize, narratives that mischaracterize who we are and what we've done and what we're about. It helps us to build on previous blueprints so every generation does not have to keep starting all the way over from scratch. We have blueprints that Du Bois left, Malcolm left, Garvey left, so many people. It helps us to prevent making the same mistakes, or it should. We should be able to go into history and say, what happens when Black people have become very fundamentalist in a negative way, very overly strict, overbearing? How has that manifested? And then we can say, you know what, we need to be a little bit more flexible in our understanding, things like that. And then I think at the root of it, it helps us to correctly diagnose our problems. You don't want to go to the doctor because you said you had a headache, and the doctor says, oh, you got something with your leg, we got to cut your leg off. If they got the wrong diagnosis, they're going to have the wrong prescription, right? You have to accurately know what the problem is so you can accurately and efficiently diagnose it. So history helps us to diagnose our problems. Why are we poor? Most of us. Why are so many of us in prison? Why do we struggle with drug addictions? Is it just us? All those questions. And once we get to the root of that, then we can start coming up with answers. And lastly, history doing all that, it helps us to have prescription. And just so y'all know, when you go to the doctor, they diagnose you, but then they do tests so they know what their hunch is right and exact of what's wrong with you. But then they give you a prescription. This means the remedy to your problem. We don't just want a bunch of people telling us what the white man did to us and how we suffer and what we're and ways in which we're dysfunctional. We want to know what do we do about it. So history is a tool that can help with all of those things I just mentioned. And that's how I would say it, brother, in terms of in a comprehensive way, the importance of Black History Month.
Okay, now I want to read this into the record. It's the definition of mass programming in psychology. And if anybody's watching this, I would recommend you go and look this up. I think it's safe to say, as people of African heritage, our culture has been disrupted. You know, we talk about European disruption. So our families have been disrupted. Our very identity has been disrupted. So I think Black History Month becomes important for those reasons. But the definition of mass programming, it says, the concept of manipulating large groups of people's thoughts and behaviors through repeated exposure to specific messages or ideas, often using techniques from psychology and mass communication to influence collective opinions and actions. And so ultimately, the mass media is part of mass programming. The disinformation in public school is part of mass programming. And I would go so far as to say even religion is part of the mass programming. So is Black History Month a necessity because our way of life and our whole identity and our history has been disrupted?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, that's a question for you, yes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I started, but when I went down that whole list, the first thing I said is it helps us identify ourselves. That's one of the number one things. But it's much more than identifying. It's, for instance, you're talking essentially about propaganda in a sense, right? So when we go through our history, we're going to see what are some of the tools that white supremacist organizations, institutions, and individuals have used to keep us, to disrupt us, right? And one of the tools has been mass programming, i.e. propaganda. See, you're going to look, that will come clear to us when we study the history, the different forms it's taken. There's a book by Donald Bogle called Toms, Coons, Mulattoes, Mammies, and Bucks. And he breaks down this anti-Black propaganda mass programming campaign and all of those different forms of media going way back to Birth of a Nation, you know, so that's a real thing. Now, Black History Month is important. It is necessary, but I want to frame it not just in February, family. It's important every day. You know, John Henrik Clarke said, and I'm paraphrasing him, that history is like a compass. It helps you locate where you are. And it's like I think he said a clock, helps you know what time you're in. So if you look at it that way, we need to have a compass and a clock with us every day. We need to know where we are, what time it is, right? Our name and address, who we are, and where we come from every day. But it's also important that brothers like Carter G. Woodson understood the need to have commemorative events, weeks, months, as it were, to really lock in on the importance of these things. So I'm a person that says we should do this every day, appreciate the history, but I also understand it's important we have a time where we really lock in and we emphasize the importance of doing that every day. So, yeah.
Okay, so to drill down on that quote from the great Dr. John Henrik Clarke, he said, history is a clock that people use to tell their political and cultural time of day. It is also a compass that people use to find themselves on the map of human geography. History tells a people where they have been and what they have been, where they are and what they are. Most important, history tells a people where they still must go and what they still must be. The relationship of history to a people is the same as the relationship of a mother to her child. That's quoting the great Dr. John Henry Clark verbatim. Now, we did not get, our own history in the public school education, or maybe even in the private school, depending on what kind of school you went to. And so, basically, for me, because now in psychology, there's an expression, dissociative identity disorder. That's when you try to disassociate from the group that you belong to and claim that you're a member of another group. We see a lot of that going on today. The point is, the trauma inflicted on us is systemic. And like I said before, that trauma includes the media. They weaponize our music against us. They weaponize the school against us. European holidays, European-centered religions, etc. Now, I think this is interesting, Brother Agyei. We use the term trauma often. And I say, you know what, let me look up the definition, the technical definition of the word trauma. It says trauma, a deeply distressing or disturbing event that overwhelms an individual's coping mechanisms, resulting in significant and lasting negative effects on their mental, emotional, and physical well-being. And I would say until we deal with the trauma and get our minds right, we will remain stuck in reverse. And that begins with our embracing our identity as Africans. Now, does Black History Month help us to embrace our identity as Africans?
Depending on how people use it, but to give that complication, is I think one of my roles is to help people see the complexity of matters or the nuance. History, there's something as a scholar of Africana studies, there's something we call historiography. That's how history is rendered, right? So in different times, history is rendered differently. In Carter G. Woodson's time, Joel Augustus Rogers, J. Rogers, we were taught that we were ugly, we came from gorillas, we were primitive. So the historiography of our history was contributionists, vindicationists. We are somebody. We did do stuff. So if you notice those books, then it's 5 Negro presidents, great Black men in history. It's did you know that we did this? That was the historiography then. We now know, I think in 2025, we know that we've done great things. We may not know it with great specificity. We know that, some of us speak multiple languages. We know about African civilization. So now the historiography should be, in my opinion, and I concur with the great Amos Wilson, who said also, we have to make sure that we're not using history for elementary school. What that means is this. In elementary school, the teacher goes and says, okay, we're going to go through our 2 times tables, two times 1, two times, and you go through it, right? Now, as we get to middle school, if you're still doing that, we got a problem because you're supposed to move on. We know that now. So now, once you get to high school, you're talking about sine, cosine, tangent, algebra, trigonometry. It's more sophisticated. It builds on what you got when you were younger. It's an analogy to say history cannot just be the thing we go to feel good. It should not just be the thing we go to say, did you know the first Black nurse in New York State? Now we got to be talking about how do we go to our history to find answers for creating Black-owned cooperatives? How do we go to history to figure out how to avoid the tactics of COINTELPRO? How do we, so it has to be a little bit more functional. It can't just be, it can't stay with identity, although that is very important. But if you think about all the books our people have written that tell us who we are, where we come from, we got a lot. I still haven't read all of them. It's a lot. But I want people to understand Black History Month is also a time. I have a lecture on this. It's called Black History, More Than Dead Men myths, and feel good. Yeah. And it's saying, yes, know who you are, feel good, have pride, but now, family, you could have all that and still be getting your neighborhood bombed, be under martial law, and you can't defend yourself. But you know where you come from, though.
Right.
You know where you come from. You could quote it down, right? But
Right.
you ain't got no self-defense capacity. You people starving, you can't feed them. So yes, it is identity formation and pride, but we have to make sure we keep a functional capacity, teaching us how to fight, teaching us how to stay cool in times of stress, so you ain't stroking out, heart attacking out like I once did. That you know how to right meditate in all the noise. You know how to go in and hear that voice that's telling you, oh, this is how you move. Oh, this is what you can do. You coming up with ideas because you know how to meditate and self-reflect. Or it's telling you, you know what? You need to eat differently. Some of our issues, we so hyperactive and can't. And we talk about, I got brain fog. Oh, well, wait a minute. Let's examine what we're eating. What are we putting in our body? That might. So history, believe it or not, family, speaks to all of that. So, for instance, if I'm having issues, I say I want to lose weight, brother Rollo, I got to lose weight, man. I want to get back in shape. When I was playing football, we got a brother in history because he's no longer physically here, named Dr. Sebi. We got a brother named Loyola Africa, right? That spent their entire lives researching the things they eat, their effect on the body. So I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I ain't got to go on YouTube. I ain't got to go to the white man. I could go right to our history and look up what Dr. Sebi was talking about. I can look at what Loyola Africa was talking about. Or this sister is still alive, Queen of Four, but she wrote books. My first fast for 30 days when I was a young man, I did because of reading her book, right? So history, that's why I listed all those different things. History provides at least 10 different things that are very crucial to us being empowered, people being happy, being at peace, and being able to defend ourselves if we got to. Right? Yeah.
Okay, so we talk about history, not just Black American history, but African history, like the totality of our history. When you do that, when we look into that history, you begin to learn what I think are some very interesting philosophical concepts. And you alluded to it a minute ago, this idea of Sankofa. For those that know, this is an Akan symbol of a bird that's reaching back to pick up an egg. Now the egg, right, that's it. That's right over your shoulder. That's it. Mm-hmm. So the egg symbolizes the children or the future. And so the bird is picking up the future to move the future forward by teaching the future its history. What are your thoughts on that concept of Sankofa?
I love it. And I like to think I've been doing my best to practice it for a long time. You can't really intelligently go forward. You can't really say you're going to do anything. Like, even if I say I want to be the greatest basketball player, which is what Kobe Bryant said, rest in power, what did he do? He said, let me find out the brother that I think is the baddest one to ever do it, Michael Jordan. And what did he do? He studied him. Everybody in the know says that he's the closest to Michael Jordan that they know in terms of his will to win, in terms of his being the first one in the gym, the last one to leave, that work ethic, that never say die, or what he calls Mamba mentality. So you have to, no matter what you want to do, it's always wise to look at who did it before and see if they left a blueprint. You know, the problem that we tend to have is that, again, it's very important to take these things and to understand the gist of it and to move with the spirit of the gist of what it's saying, but not to resist the tendency to get trapped off by it. So one way people translate Sankofa is, it is not a problem, it's not a crime to go back and fetch what you have lost. But when you say fetch, that has a connotation. If I have a dog and I throw a tennis ball in the park, fetching means the dog goes and brings it back. Now, if you just study African history, African civilization, and you stay stuck there, that ain't fetching it. Some of us will stay stuck in. Did you know? And we stuck, and that's great. But the point is to go there, bring it back to us now, so that what we can apply and learn the lessons from it. So Sankofa, man, is absolutely a very critical and important principle in our history. We shout out to the ancient Ghana for that, for sure.
Yeah, for real, for real. Now you mentioned self-esteem, and I think it's safe to say that the European-centered education that we've all gotten, it kind of destroyed the self-esteem of Black children. But that same education helps to boost the self-esteem of white children. Now, as a classroom teacher, tell us of the importance of teaching children their history and the importance of boosting their self-esteem with the information that you're teaching them.
Yes, sir. Recently, I think maybe last week, my organization, Harlem Liberation School, posted a video. I think it was called something to the effect of 6 guaranteed ways to boost the self-esteem of our Black girls. I'm focusing on Black girls because the statistics show that Black boys have a hard way to go too. Let's start there. But we targeted it to them because the studies are showing that in the last 20 years, more Black girls and women are committing suicide. We also know that in terms of prison population, the population of Black girls and women entering the prison system is escalating. This indicates red flag, danger. So one of the things we try to give 6 reasons. I'm not going to go through all of them. Y'all need to go to Harlem Rich School, check out the video. But we have to remember the world is full of these stereotypes, the anti-Black propaganda, discrimination. You know, if I took you back to, let's say, the post-Civil War period, all the way up to, let's say, 1920s, 30s, 40s, there were stores that sold postcards that you could buy and actually use and send that had pictures of a little Black girl, a boy in a tree that was, of course, it was scantily clad. Their eyes were huge and mad white and big lips. And underneath that tree was an alligator with his mouth wide open, right? That said, welcome. There was all these pictures of violence against Black children. In fact, there was a song called I think, and when I was coming, it was called, we call it 10 Little Indians, but the original song was 10 Little N-Words. That was the original song. And it went through 10 little Indians sitting there, and it went through each child and how they were violently killed, family. This was a popular nursery rhyme that people sang. So it's important to know that the anti-Black propaganda hasn't just been against we adults, it's been against our kids. That, and even now, the stereotype, particularly of girls, of Black girls, is that they are being there's a word they call it, but it's like they're being treated as if they're adults. They're being spoken to as if they're grown women by teachers when they're like 10, 11, 12. It's almost like this presumption. I think they call it they're being adulted. I think that's what they call it. That, or this idea that Black women don't feel pain, right? So the guy that is attributed as being the father of gynecology, whose name escapes me, he operated on enslaved African women and didn't give them any anesthesia because the stereotype was that Black women feel no pain. Now, still today that exists. And when you're going around telling people that this group doesn't feel pain, that may sound like it's good, right? But what it does is it puts a really unnecessary burden on our sisters who don't then participate in self-care, who overextend themselves to other people, don't take care of themselves. And now they have increased rates of stress-related, hypertension-related diseases. So this stuff, I want to be real clear that all this stuff we're talking about has real effects on people. This ain't something that's in the sky and we just talking. This has effects on people's lives. their pockets, their bank accounts, and all these things. And what makes it worse, Brother Rollo, is that in our homes, in our relationships, on our blocks, in our organizations, sometimes we tend to reinforce these negative tropes or tropes or motifs of our sisters and our young ones. You may know, I believe it was Joanna Kunjufu who famously said that our girls in the home are taught. They're taught how to clean. They're taught how to be organized. They're taught to get up early. They're taught to take care of people. They know how to cook, know how to balance budgets, and the boys is like, hey, do whatever you want. The boys may think that's a good thing, but it makes them nothing muffins who don't know how to function. The girls, yes, they know how to do everything, but guess what? It's almost like we expect them to do everything. They get all of the focus of doing things and being active falls completely almost on them. And obviously that's not fair. Is my camera out? Okay.
No, brother, you're going.
Okay, so that's one of the things with the girls. Also understand, family, that I am a man that has daughters. I am an educator, and I have heard countless stories coming up with my little girlfriends when I was young, and almost every one of them had a story about how they were touched inappropriately, how they were abused, often by people in their families and in the neighborhood. So I came up as a young man very sensitive to these things because I had heard it, and it would hurt to hear your girl say, this happened. You're like, wow. That's something I can't relate to. I don't have that. I mean, some men have, I don't have that story, but I've heard it so much. So, yes, a few things that I'm not going to get into everything, but a few things that to be mindful of is that many of our girls and young men suffer with poor self-esteem. No one's going to come to you and say, hey, I have really low self-esteem. I think I'm ugly. I think my body is not cute. I think I'm unattractive. I think I'm unintelligent. I don't feel worthy. No one says it, but yet they all say it. They all say it because there's telltale signs, right? Don't look you in the eye. Don't take risks. Afraid to socialize or over socializing to compensate, right? Overcompensation. Body language, posture. You say, hey, you're really talented and beautiful, and the young lady says, what you trying to be funny? Gets defensive with you, and you said something beautiful. That's a telltale sign. Doesn't know how to take a compliment, thinks you're trying to be funny or sarcastic. That's a telltale sign. Argumentative in a case where they shouldn't be. That's a telltale sign. So or overly violent, hyper violent in school or on the block. That's a telltale sign. Seems to be ugly or negative when other sisters are shining, and makes maybe negative comments. She thinks she ain't cute. That's a telltale sign that you feel small and inadequate. So one of the things we have to do, and this can't just be sisters, this got to be brothers too. Your mother a mother or auntie could tell a young lady, you're beautiful, this and that. But when the daddy and the older brother and the uncle says it, it hits different, family. Trust me, it hits differently. So we got to teach them their history. Since we're in Black History Month, let's start there. They have to have a sense that they're connected to a lineage of Black women that were some of the most brilliant, resilient, physically and mentally strong, creative and innovative sisters on this planet. And if they look at that video on the channel, they'll see we're showing all these people. We had people out in space. C. Mae Jemison, the first sister in space, was also a graduate of the Africana Studies and Research Center at Cornell University, like me.
Wow.
We have the same Jegna, Dr. James Turner, rest in power forever. Right? So this is a sister that has consciousness, who's also an engineer, a scientist, and an astronaut. Still alive. C. Mae Jemison. Check her out, y'all. So connect them to our queens, to our fighters, we've had all female armies. We, the history of our sisters is serious. People like Ida B. Wells talking about every black home should have a rifle, a Winchester rifle, and should know how to use it. So that's who we connect to. Mary McLeod Bethune that starts her own college family. We have to connect them so they can see, not just men. You can't just show men in history to women or the boys. They have to know that sisters have played a very important role in our history, and that has to be something that they know. That goes a long way to help them raise their heads up. Teach them or shall I say, affirm their beauty, but don't stop at the beauty. Because if I may, pardon my language, if your only value is in your booty or your coochie, we got a problem. Because you're so much more than that. And it disturbs me. I was telling the queen, it disturbs me when I go to TikTok, and every time I go, there's a sister from the continent or United States shaking her behind. That's disturbing. And then the young girls, every time you go, they're doing the selfie, poking their lips out. Like, it's almost like you want to say, yo, if you only knew, like, where your real beauty lies, all that stuff is icing on the cake, but the cake is your intelligence, your talent, and your character. And if all that's in place, that stuff will never die. But all that other stuff, family, that's that's in the eyes of the beholder, and that stuff don't stay that way forever. And this is one of the reasons, Brother Rollo, that so many of our girls are getting cosmetic surgery that's very dangerous. And they're going to countries to get it cheap when countries ain't got no labor laws, no medical requirements. So our girls are getting BBLs and lip injections and all types of stuff, Botox, that's poisoning their bodies. So this subject is of great importance. We have to make sure that they know, listen, baby girl, you're beautiful. They got nothing to do with your body. Nothing. You're beautiful because you are a child of the Most High. You come from the very first people that the Most High put on this planet, and those people have a lineage of greatness, of surviving despite all odds, and of teaching the whole world what it means to be just and humane and cultured. That's why you're beautiful now. All that other stuff, that's a whole nother story. But that's important. Some of us do a good job teaching them they're beautiful, but we teach it from a physical point of view. We don't teach them about the character and the talent. And then lastly, I don't want to give everything away. The last thing, Brother Rollo, that's important that we do for our girls is that we teach them how to solve problems, how to navigate independently. Because guess what? When I first started teaching, I had an expression I would use, and I would put a sign up in front of my class. This is the no bimbo, no nothing muffin zone, right? Some of the girls said, Mr. T, I don't like that. No, but you trying to say? I said, no. In my classification, bimbo don't have a gender. Men can be bimbos and women can be bimbos. What it means is airhead, can't think for yourself. Nothing muffin means you don't know how to do anything. You cute, or the guys, you got a great physique, you can lift 1,000 pounds, but you can't figure out how to take care of your family. Or how to get involved meaningfully in the liberation of your people. So one of the biggest things we can do is help our children, girls or boys, know how to navigate, how to speak, how to write, how to solve problems for themselves. My mother was really good. She would, when I would, Mom, what does this word mean? She said, I don't know. I guess you got to look that up in the dictionary. And she made me go to it every time. And, my father said, figure that out. My brother figured that out. What do you think? He would take me through that. But what do you think are the reasons? What do you think he taught me, what are the resources you have available? What's your problem? Really understand what the nature of your problem is. Then say, what are the resources I need? Then look and see what resources do I have. Right? He told me a process. So this is very important. When kids know how to do stuff, family, which means what? Defend themselves, think for themselves, earn their own money using their God-given gifts, they're going to be empowered. They're not going to come out in the world all scared to do nothing. They're not going to come out like, oh, that's too big for me, or I'm not valuable, because they know how to do things. It's very, don't be these parents that's doing everything for the kid, and the poor kid don't know how to do anything. So of course they're going to have low self-esteem. They see other people their age doing stuff, and they're kind of dysfunctional. So that's important. That's where I would stop. Mm-hmm.
And now, earlier I mentioned dissociative identity disorder. Some people try to identify as something that they're not. They said that that comes from chronic childhood trauma. So, is the European centered education that we've been exposed to, where we don't get the knowledge of ourselves, does that, in your opinion, constitute chronic childhood trauma?
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you can even look at trauma, real simple, trauma is injury. If somebody knocks you upside your head with a pipe, you got head trauma. You got an injury. But we've been knocked upside our head with ignorance and with false teaching. So it's the same thing as injuries cause it injury. And Joy DeGry is very important as we're speaking about girls and Black history. She gives a very important analysis in that post-traumatic slavery syndrome book. She's saying now that the trauma is not just what happened to you today. It's not just what happened last week, that we have a trauma in 2025 based on what happened to our third and fourth great grandparents' family on the plantations, or on the continent of Africa being molested and captured and brought over here. So it's very important we understand trauma, that is, we have a term we use that's popular now, intergenerational trauma. This is to say that let's say a young lady's father was killed because he was an activist of some sort for Black people, hung, and they made her watch it. And that's traumatized her. So guess what? She has kids. She has sons. And guess the first thing she teaches them, look at here. Don't you be getting involved with none of that Black, pro-Black. I don't want to hear that. You just go to school and keep your head down. See? And then they grow up and they don't get involved, and they teach that to their kids. Right. That's intergenerational trauma. That's socialized. But there's also, now we got a new term called epigenetic trauma. This means actually it gets into your actual DNA. This is deep, family. That this issue of fear, we once thought, oh, it's just something you teach, that is socialized. But there are people now that are saying that there's epigenetic trauma, that year after year, when everybody's, no, we can't, well, the Trump did this, oh, we can't do nothing. No, don't you speak out, shut down your YouTube channel. Oh no. Mm-hmm. That's passed on. It gets in your blood. That's crazy. It's like your muscles have muscle memory. That's what they're saying. So this issue of trauma is deep. Please read Joy DeGry's book, Post-Traumatic Slavery Syndrome, so that you can kind of wrap your minds around how that works. And if you can understand intergenerational trauma, and you may hear people say, we got to break, the chains, intergenerational chains and generational curses. That's kind of what it speaks to. Molestation, blowing money, being overly bragging about how much we enriched yet another white corporation. Like that's sick if you think about it. And then talking about the next, you giving the white man all your money, bragging about what designer you got. Then the next week you ain't eating. At what point do you learn that's not acceptable? But those are taught behaviors, and that's coming from trauma, Brother Rollo. To connect it, the reason that we gotta always take our money, it burns a hole in our pocket. We gotta have the money. It's burning. I gotta spend this thing. It's almost like we in a competition. How fast can I spend my money with my sworn enemy? Wow. Right. Think about that, fam. Just let that marinate. How fast can I spend my hard-earned money with the individual or corporation that I know hates my very guts, who I know has said, oh, now that Trump is in office, we're not doing this DEI. We're not hiring X amount of black people and Latino people. And yet you still like, I gotta get that bag and them shoes. I gotta get that TV and appliance. I mean, that is not, I won't even say sick. That's just so, that makes no sense. But it does make sense if you understand. Bah, we've been hit on the head. You know how you ever seen a movie and somebody was a brilliant lawyer, whatever they were doing, and they got in a car crash, hit their head, and now they have amnesia. They got to learn how to walk all over again. They don't know the people in their life that's important to them. They don't remember anything about the law. They don't even know they're a lawyer. Amnesia, that's what trauma does. It robs you of your identity, right? So it's a very good question because it brings it's like a full circle, connects everything. That trauma is real key. And you don't have to be a psychologist or therapist necessarily, depending on your trauma, right, to be able to help in this way. Let the little kid, let the people understand that they're appreciative, they're valuable, and teach them, empower them. Because again, when somebody knows how to make money, start a business, speak for themselves, defend themselves, family, you ain't got to tell them they precious. They know because they're operationalizing that. You see? But if I'm in class and I'm stumbling, I don't know the work, my head is, I feel I'm stupid. Those are the kids that I could tell you for a fact, there's a science to misbehavior. When you see kids always acting out, first thing I think, are they eating at home? Is their home life, are they getting their needs met, their basic needs? Then you got to ask, how are they being treated? How do they feel about themselves? You see? Secure kids that getting the basics of what they need. Well, you know, they'll talk in class, and I used to talk all the time in class, but I did my work. And if you ask me, I had a hand up and I had an answer. It may not be right. And I misbehaved to a point. Because I had parents that's going to whip my, you understand. You have discipline. When you see kids misbehave, there's a science even to that. When you see a whole people misbehave, ready to fight each other over $5. I told you the time, brother, that there was two brothers outside my building was ready to kill each other over $10.
Wow. Now you didn't tell me that one.
Only to find out after talk. I said, whoa, because I knew him. Whoa, what's going on? He owed me $10. Look, as we went through it, the dude said, nah, bro, I've been trying to tell you, but you've been talking over me. Remember we went to the club and you ain't have it and I had you, I gave you. And you said, okay, so we good. You don't owe me the 10? And the dude was like, damn, bro, my bad.
That's funny.
See, where does that come from? That, but the cop comes by, it's just a sweet. Where does that come from? That's a trauma. Where you hating on the people you should be loving on, and you loving on the people that you should be very suspicious of. Absolutely coming from trauma.
Yeah, so you mentioned behavior, and according to psychology, every behavior serves a function. So if a child is acting out, there's a reason why that child is acting out. The name Joy DeGruy was put in the search. I would encourage people to even get the book, like Brother Agyei said, but also look her up on YouTube because sister is on point. So Joy DeGruy, the correct spelling is in the search. Now, Brother Agyei, you have people like Morgan Freeman, who said that there should be no such thing as Black History Month because there is no White History Month. How do you respond to that?
Oh, yeah, well, with all due respect to Morgan Freeman, who's a great actor, I remember him when I was a kid. He was in an electric company.
Yeah.
He just had to read, right.
Easy reader.
But with due respect to him, because I don't want to come off like I'm disrespecting him, some of our people just have more of an integrationist approach. Some of our people don't want to be colorblind because for one, it allows you to move way up in the society when you push that type of anti-political sentiment, right? Some of them don't understand the role of history. They think it's just an academic abstract course about a bunch of dead men, particularly white men, and great white movements led by white men or people with money. They don't understand that history. Remember, I named all those things history does. They don't see that history is much more than that. It's a lot of stuff to history. Also, they don't tend to. They tend to be people who kind of fall into the, I'm going to say, multicultural dilemma. This idea where we all come from different cultures and they're all important, and there's truth to that. But what it's saying is that I can represent my blackness or my Africanity, and I can represent that within my family and even have an organization built on it. And I can still recognize other people have their thing and their contributions and their culture, right? But I have to know mine and protect mine. What we tend to do, man, we want to prove to people that we're so American. It's like, how we was, man. You watch the Kung Fu flicks on Saturdays and we out there with Kung Fu karate shoes and we slanting our eyes. We more Chinese in the chat. We funny like that, man. We mimic other people in our hairstyles, our dress, everything. And just, we don't see the beauty right here. Booker T. Washington said, cast your buckets where you are. When you fishing, you ain't got to go 3 miles away, throw the line there. We got fish right here. We have value right under our feet, right in our homes. Some of us have people right in our homes that are masters at engineering, teaching, philosophy, mechanics. But for some reason, if it, with us, it got to look a certain way, brother. You know what I mean? When I was young, I heard Brother Farrakhan say, he said, the problem with this country is you think that everything has a look. He said, so you white Christians, you think Jesus is white looking like John Lennon. He said, but what if he showed up at your door and his face was black and his hair was in locks and his feet and skin looked like bronze burnt or brass burnt in the oven? What would you say? And he's like mimicking the white lady that's answering the door, and it's Jesus. Honey, call 911. There's at the door.
Right.
And everybody went up, applause. But that's what it's like. We think authority is white. We won't admit it. But a lot of us, if we didn't hear it from the white man, the white media, we think that when Rollo says it, Brother Agyei says it, oh, they just talking. They don't know. And meanwhile, the people that you're dismissing that look like you might be way more learned and informed and experienced than the people that you're going to. This is sickness. It really is. I've dealt with it all my life. I've told people stuff. They fought me on it, tooth and nail, only to come back later and tell me that some other some other person said the exact thing I said. I'm like, wow. Have you dealt with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So yeah. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, now there's a lot of history we don't know, especially as it relates to African kingdoms. In my book, I put a whole list of African kingdoms that we never learn about in school. Not the least of which was Mansa Musa and, Ethiopia and any number of others that I can mention, Songhai Empire. Many of them, I'm sure. I think if we knew that history and we connected ourselves to that past, I think our not only self-esteem, but our confidence as a people and our incentive to achieve would be a lot different. Now, you have, Brother Agyei, a lot of Black separatist groups out here, who are saying that somehow we're, fundamental Americans or whatever they call themselves, or ADOS or whatever it is. How would they, well, first of all, are they in that space where they're not trying to identify with being African because they lack their understanding of history?
Well, it seems to me if you proclaim to be a leader of Black people, or even, let's say, an advocate or a spokesperson, if you will, and your party line is we don't connect, we don't recognize ourselves as African. And remember, there's a lot of manifestations of this. You also got the people who are saying, we're Native American, kind of Native American in a non-African connected way. We're indigenous, but we're not connected to Africa. So it comes in a bunch of different ways. To me, it says two things. These are people who, God bless them, are historically lacking or deficient. Let's start there. They don't know the history. If you know the history, there's no way you could possibly make the claim, right? Even if you say, because David and Hotep, I gotta go back. I can't dig up the name of his book. He has done a masterful genealogy. He's a student of Ivan van Sertima. He builds on the work of Ivan van Sertima. He says, listen, not only did we come here before Columbus to the New World, but the people y'all call Native Americans are actually the descendants of Asians and Africans. He said, so for the people who think, oh, we're indigenous, the history shows and proves, yeah, we are indigenous, but those people are African. The Chinese, there's a book I read many years ago, What They Never Taught You in History Class. I think the brother's name was Indus Kush. And he breaks down the Chinese. He shows you pictures, all these different prehistoric cultures, and that they are what? Descendants of Africa, family. People left the continent and they traveled, they migrated. So even if you run in that I'm Native American, yeah, no doubt. No doubt. A lot of us say Cherokee, Blackfoot in our family, right? We have pictures to prove it. But understand that those people you're looking at that we were told were red men were black men and women or African descended people, right? So no matter whatever angle they're coming from, it's not correct. And lastly, on that point, Brother Rollo, I tend, if I'm going for brain surgery, I don't want to talk to the lawyers and I want to talk the philosophers. I want to talk to brain surgeons. So one of our problems we have with the internet and this free access, anybody can jump on if you got internet access and microphones and cameras, is that we have people who are not trained or studied or informed in certain areas that are speaking with great authority, and that's very dangerous. You know, when I have conversations like this, I don't go to YouTube pundits, I go to genealogists and historians. What are they saying? Because they're gonna be trained to do the type of research where they can speak conclusively. David Imhotep, man, he traces the people we call that came before Columbus. Man, he does linguistics, he does anthropology, he has artifacts. He talks about how certain tools that were here in the so-called New World in that time, the names of them are almost identical to the names in West Africa amongst the people. I think you may say Twa, or what people refer to as Pygmy, right? He connects it. Then he shows you maps. Listen, this is proof. Maps where a certain time of the year, when they left out of West Africa in boats, there was a current. An ocean current took them right to the New World, family. So he's hitting you from all those different angles. Whereas the dude on YouTube who ain't studying all that is just talking. He got nothing to back that up. So, you know, when I'm looking for things that require specific knowledge, I try to go to the people who have it, like a John Henrik Clark. I'm going to trust what he says about Malcolm because he knew Malcolm and he rolled with Malcolm. I'm going to trust what he says about our history because he was a walking encyclopedia, and he also was learned and trained by the great Arturo Schomburg. I mean, so I try to, I remember that certain things, liberation studies, you can't just, people feel, Brother Rollo, they could just jump in. Well, I think Trump is, listen, fine. But when you're talking to somebody that studies this and that's all they do with their life, you got to give them that respect that they're coming, what their opinion is coming from information, not just from what they're feeling in the moment or what they see now. They're studying different things that lead them to a logical conclusion. So we have to start, I end by saying we have to start appreciating and showing more love for our people who spent their lives, right, studying in these different fields. The same way that if your job fired you and you can prove it's because you black or you're a woman, that's about to go away because of this Trump administration. But anyway, you wouldn't go to the ball player, you wouldn't go to the theologist, the preacher, you'd go to a lawyer because they've studied law. They know how to interpret legal language, they know legal precedents, and they are best qualified to help you wage that fight. I don't know why we see education, youth development, and black liberation any differently. It's the same thing. Yes, I have an opinion about law. You know, I have an opinion about courts, but that ain't what I've studied, what I can quote backwards. My thing is history and education and organizing, right? So I think it's important we let people know, like always defer to people who know. That's not to say that they are perfect or infallible, but when you want information that's credible, stop going to these people that popped up out of nowhere like Pop Tarts. Go to people that are historians, genealogists, anthropologists that know that stuff and can give you resources to cross-reference, right?
Yeah, I refer to those people that you call them pop tarts. I call them fake experts
That's
that are
right.
that are promoting some pseudo intellectualism.
That's right.
None of them have any credentials, to speak of. They're not educators on any level. They're not historians. They're not anthropologists. But somehow they're the experts on education and history and anthropology. And a lot of it is a lot of contrived, it's bogus, and it's very disingenuous. But they push and promote it anyway. Now, you mentioned Native American people. I read a book, and I would recommend this to everybody. It's called Ramses III, Father of Ancient America. And it breaks down in detail how Ramses III of ancient Kemet led an expedition to the West and came here, Central America and so forth, and basically brought culture. So what we know as Native American culture is actually brought here from ancient Kemet by this expedition led by Ramses III. They show artwork, brother Agyei, Native American indigenous artwork and artwork from Kemet. And it was the same theme. It was the same
Identical.
thing. Yeah, it was identical. So you see,
That's what I was saying by dude. Yeah.
not
That's
only
right.
that, you see pyramids in Kemet, but you're also seeing pyramids in Central America. There's no way two different cultures on the planet at the same time are going to build the same structure. You see the similarity in the culture. I read this book, brother Agyei. I was blown away. It was very conclusive. And just to put that out there on Black History Month, if you think you're Native American and you have nothing to do with African, you would definitely want to read that book because it was very conclusive.
You got to study, family.
Absolutely.
It's worth your while to, because one of the things that Maya talks about, truth was important to Africans, and it still is. That truth is important. It also is a thing that the Bible takes, and it's 10 commandments, but it comes from the 40 negative confessions that I have not, essentially saying I have not spoken mistruth about anyone. And the Bible says I don't bear false witness against my neighbor. Right? Check this out. When you going out here mouthing off about what you are and aren't, or what somebody else is or isn't, without it being based on actual facts, you're bearing false witness. And our people see that as a very serious offense. To speak with great authority, don't know what the hell you talking about, that is an offense. It's not just a simple thing, that's a big a spiritual offense, and causes great political damage, right? So yeah, that's right. Read them books, man, and y'all can do internet searches and find it. Look up David and Hotep, definitely, because he even gives a specific year the white man came into existence, brother. And he got a white master genealogist that verified it.
Wow.
See, so once you know that, they couldn't have invented A, B, and C because they only came in this particular year. Exactly. And those things existed already. So yeah, the history is important. And let me say this. I have a brotherhood I'm a part of, Jiko La Kumbunga, shout out to the brothers. They are all over the world, actually. And we were talking about how, we got to step up our global, the so-called Africans in America, we have to step up our global knowledge, right? And that's true. And I was making a point also to understand that one of the reasons that we are in teams is so we don't have to know everything and be able to do everything. That's too exhaustive. I put about more than 30 years in studying our history, our culture, and politics. So I got to do that for nutrition and physical fitness and economic norms. You have a team, family, and those team members specialize in different things. So it's also important, family, to be able to start, when you talking about this is my friend and this is my comrade, this is my sister and brother, I want y'all to start thinking of team. Who's on your team? Do you have somebody that can educate all of you on nutrition and health? Perfect. You don't have to know everything. You got somebody there that maybe is into self-defense? Great. You know somebody in your team that's real deep with the history or the political science? Great. I don't want people to feel watch this. They need to know everything. You should have a good foundational knowledge. But understand, if you got the right people in your team, family, it's as easy as a call. But Brother Rollo, man, what's the name of that album? Boom. What was the first group? And he said, "Oh, Balaji, that's boom, 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 boom. That easy. It's that simple." And then it could even say, "Oh, you need to read this book, and you check this out, and give you the sources." That's why we have teams and brotherhoods and sisterhoods, family, in the first place.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to be the master of everything. You know, the jack of all trades is the master of none. Remember that.
That's real talk. That's real talk. All right, brother Agyei, we mentioned some books and you dropped some books recently. I'm going to give you an opportunity now to plug those books. What are the names and where can we find them?
Okay, I think the most relevant, I wrote, those of y'all, especially from New York, or those of y'all who saw the movie Paid in Full know about AZ Alpo and Rich Porter. They were infamous drug dealers that were really like teenagers coming up in Harlem in the 80s and 90s. I wrote AZ's life story. It's called Game Over. But I don't necessarily push that book as much as the others, because that book had more of an kind of an anti, don't get involved with the streets, don't believe the myth of the street life. This is what happened to these three guys that were big, and look what happened to all of them. The other, that was published by Simon & Schuster. That was a big thing, man. That was an Essence best-selling book. But the books that I tend to really push the most are the books that I self-publish, because they have a very clear political intent. One is called Truth for Our Youth. That's an empowerment book for teens. There's a book parents love. They seem to like it too. They read through it, but it's really for the teens. And in some cases, young adults, even up to early 20s. It tells them how to make decisions, how they should look choosing friends, and just don't choose a friend because they're on your team. They live in your block. Have intentions about what type of people do you want to be with, right? Because there's a theory that the 5 people that you spend the most time with, that's how you're going to be in 5 years. That's deep. Think about that. You with the dude that's always ready to pop off? You with the dude that's always getting over on the women? So it makes you rethink how I choose. I have to be more intentional with the people. And sometimes we're better off standing on our square by ourselves. If we can't find people like that, that's all right. Stand by yourself, and your energy will attract people like that to you. We call that your soul tribe, right? So it's True for Our Youth. There's a book called, my most recent book, Wukusu, a self-empowerment book, is now the empowerment book for adults. Getting over fear, getting over insecurity. Stop telling yourself these negative messages, how to clear your mind of toxic thoughts, and also how to identify and properly deal with toxic people in your relationship, in your home, on your block, at your job, in your community or organization, right? Then you got the Blueprint, a BSU handbook, is teaching Black college students how to organize, how to protest effectively and successfully. And then there's leadership, philosophy, ethics, and practice. It's kind of like the foundational things of running an organization that you may not get in a lot of leadership books. I start with the basics, because once it's like sports, once you know the basics, you can build. But if your foundation is weak, if your skill set is weak, you read a bunch of books and all that doesn't matter, because it's a weak foundation. So those are the books. You can look me up if you type my name in. I have a LinkedIn, not a LinkedIn, a link tree. But if you type in my name that you should see on the screen, books next to it, they'll all come up. Or you go to Amazon.com, type my name in the book section, they'll all come up.
It's definitely search Agyei Tyehimba, AgyeiTyehimba. It's on the screen. Definitely search Brother Agyei Tyehimba, get his books, and subscribe to Harlem Liberation School on YouTube. Talk about Harlem Liberation School. Give that a plug real quick.
Okay, Harlem Liberation School was started by myself and my queen back in 2016. I was tired of going to panel discussions, and people were saying, these were leaders in the community, saying stuff that was straight false. Showing me, how you going to be a nationalist? You can't define nationalism. How you going to beat up on Black Christianity and say that you a Garveyite? and don't know that Garvey was a Christian and wrote hymns and had his own Anglican kind of church, but he radically redefined it. He Africanized it, right? So you got his flag everywhere. You don't even know the man you celebrating. See, so it said, you know what? Our people need foundational knowledge. So I see it as our attempt to bring Africana studies, which most people ain't going to get till they go to college, and it's bringing it right to the hood in a language everybody can understand. Everything I learned all the way through school, all the way through my different degrees and the doctorate programs and the master degree programs and all that, we put right in layman's language so that everyone has access for free. I also want to say that I am embarking on a new career trajectory. I'm realizing our people are deficient in certain areas that are important. And I see white people going and getting what they call life coaches to help them be on time, get over their fear, take educated risks, set goals and achieve them in a timely manner. And I said, I think our people need that too. From where I sit and what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, our people need that. So I characterize myself in addition to other roles as an empowerment coach. If you have an organization, you're trying to put together a rites of passage, a program for youth, you're trying to figure out something ain't right, Brother Agyei. People ain't coming to the meetings. I can help you with that. That's what I do. Okay. So you can also look me up for that, and we can talk about pricing and all that another time.
Okay, and that's on point. That's on point, and I'm sure if anyone does reach out to you, they're gonna get top-notch direction and top-notch advice.
Appreciate that
from Brother Agyei Tyehimba. So, Brother Agyei, that's it, brother. We're out of time. I want to thank you for joining us again. I want to make sure everybody gets those books. Make sure everybody in the chat. I'm sending everybody to Harlem Liberation School on YouTube. That channel again is Harlem Liberation School on YouTube.
We got my brother here, man. We got a short with my brother.
Oh yeah,
YouTube channel. He's breaking down, I believe, Miseducation. I'm gonna be putting more things up. I have more shorts with our brother and other people. You know, we have stuff with Betty Shabazz that dropped talking about Malcolm, that he wasn't no integrationist, and that y'all got little shorts that y'all got to check out too.
Yeah. So I would definitely say check out the shorts. Harlem Liberation School on YouTube. That channel again is Harlem Liberation School on YouTube. You got to check it out. I want to thank everybody that got in on the chat. We got some very interesting conversation going on in the chat. So I want to mention, just big up everybody that was in the chat. I would love to mention everyone by name, but I'm out of time now. But either way, I just want to thank everybody for joining in on the chat, listening, chiming in. Shout out to Brother Agyei Tyehimba. Salute to my brother DJ Tiger. And Brother Agyei, we will be calling on you again in a few weeks, brother.
Yes, sir. You know how we do.
Yes, sir. Thank you again for joining.
Have a blessed day. Thanks for having me, good brother. Have a blessed day.
Most definitely. We'll talk soon, all right?
Yes, sir. Peace and Black Power, family.
All right, peace.